about you, and it's no one else like you is what they're getting. Positive vibes only. Shout out to King Saul's boss in the build about you, and it's no one else like you is what they're getting. Positive vibes only. Shout out to King Saul's boss in the build about you, and it's no one else like you is what they're getting. Positive vibes only. Shout out to King Saul's.
My fault. The beats is blasting. The beats is beating. We got some shit to unbox because you know we have new decks on the way. Wait, new waves for the play, bae. Tell them to go play with their mother.
My life, son.
Sauce the boss. It's his birthday. Everybody wish him happy birthday.
Oh, this is big right here, y'all. Everybody wish Sauce, the official boss, happy birthday, man. Let's go. Let's see it in the timeline, huh? I like to wish Sauce.
Sauce the boss.
I like to wish Sauce the boss a happy birthday. I like to give a big shout out to Ashley Gordon. I see somebody say Ashley Gordon. Charlie Fields. I like how that sound, yo. I like to give a big happy birthday to Sauce the boss. I feel like we in the rooftop or something, you know what I mean? I like to give a big shout out to Benny Chapo, the official capo. Shout out to Sauce the boss, man. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Hope
You don't quit the
special.
short shit. Yeah. Break of dawn. Call me Megatron Ron or Teflon Don. Hey, drop bombs on them. I like to give a big shout out to Boyce Roseboro.
This is the second part of our deep dive into photos found on the internet with some of the most disturbing backgrounds ever. The devil is in the details, and these pictures prove that. Things may seem unsettling, but relatively normal at first. The deeper we go, the more disturbing it's going to get.
Friday night,
Let's
he's
start
watching
at
us
the
on his
tip
birthday.
of the iceberg.
Friday night.
Level 1.
Anywhere in the world.
H.R. Truman.
He's watching us.
Harry R. Truman was a man who personified the true American raggedness. He was a stubborn whiskey-drinking lodge owner who lived near Mount St. Helens. Mount St. Helens is an active volcano located in Washington and is known for having one of the deadliest eruptions ever recorded in history way back in 1981. That's precisely when H.R. Truman lost his life. When the volcano showed signs of erupting in early 1980, evacuation measures were put in place, but Truman made it clear he wasn't going anywhere. He had spent over 50 years running the Mount St. Helens Lodge on the shores of Spirit Lake and was understandably reluctant. In his own words, the man wasn't about to let some goddamn geologists tell him what to do. Despite weeks of earthquakes and warnings of an inevitable eruption, Truman flat out refused to evacuate. He became somewhat of a folk hero among the locals. The media at the time were straight up eating up his grumpy defiance. He gave interviews where he insisted that if the mountain he was living on was to go down, he would go down with it, which he tragically did. On May 18th, 1980, Mount St. Helens erupted with the force of a nuclear bomb. The entire north face of the volcano collapsed in a massive landslide, the largest in recorded history. It basically sent a pyroclastic flow of burning ash and rock barreling down at speeds of up to 600 miles per hour. Everything in its path was instantly obliterated. Truman, his lodge, and his 16 cats were buried under roughly 150 feet of volcanic debris. His body was never recovered, and neither was any trace of the lodge. Afterward, a bunch of photos of Truman standing in front of the mountain right before its eruption surfaced. He was shown to be completely unaware or perhaps just unwilling to accept that he was about to be erased from existence. Aaron Twankey. On December 27, 2022, Aaron Twankey sent his family a cheerful selfie of himself standing in front of a half-frozen Missouri River. By all accounts, he was no amateur. His loved ones described him as an experienced adventurer who was well-versed in extreme trekking and high-risk locations. At this point, navigating dangerous terrain was second nature to him. Unfortunately, that selfie would be the last anyone would ever see of Twankey. According to police reports and witness statements, he had been ice skating on the Missouri River and was expected to arrive downstream later that day, but he never did. At first, his family wasn't too concerned. By this time, they were used to his thrill-seeking antics, and Twankey was already a well-known kayaker with a reputation for pushing the limits. Even the photos and videos taken before his disappearance showed no signs of distress. He seemed completely at ease. But after a few days of radio silence, his family started to worry. When he still hadn't surfaced, they reported him missing. That was back in 2022. Despite extensive searches, nothing was ever found. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. With no remains to confirm his fate, Aaron Twankey was eventually presumed dead, leaving behind nothing but that final, oblivious photo as his lasting legacy. Flooding. Hurricane Helene left the southeastern United States in ruins last year. It caused devastation beyond what most people saw on the news. While the media focused on the destruction in general, there were countless personal stories that emerged on social media, each one more heartbreaking than the last. One of the most haunting accounts came from a woman named Jessica Dry Turner, who shared a now viral Facebook post on September 27th. The post was initially a hopeful one that was meant to raise awareness of the horrendous devastation caused in the affected areas. It included a photo taken by one of the victims themselves, showing Jessica's parents and nephew on the roof of their house. They were waiting to be rescued. Before the updates, the entire post carried a tinge of hopefulness. Jessica explained that her parents and young nephew had taken refuge on their roof with nothing but the clothes on their backs. She described how the victims were seeing massive 18-wheelers floating by them effortlessly with no problem. She bravely added that despite their own predicament, it's not her parents who need the 911 rescue as much as so many other people. But then came the update no one wanted to see. Jessica's parents and nephew were swept away by the flood. They didn't make it. Her sister Megan miraculously survived after being accidentally wedged between debris that blocked the current from pulling her under. In the following days, authorities searched for the bodies of the deceased. They eventually located her nephew's remains about a quarter mile from their home. Jessica later added a heartbreaking note to her post that she still waits for her mom to call her every day. Sometimes no amount of preparation or hope can stop a disaster.
They're coming straight in. Trust me, I've got nothing.
I am the right and back.
They're pushing. Get out of there.
I am the
From taking everything. Austin Howell. Free solo climbing is one of the most terrifying yet exhilarating things one can experience. The entire activity depends on no ropes, no harnesses for safety, just a person's sheer strength and concentration. Unfortunately, it also comes with the knowledge that one accidental slip doesn't mean a bad injury, it means certain death. And if there was ever someone who embodied this sort of free yet reckless spirit, it was Austin Howell, a free solo climber known for his absolutely fearless climbs and his relatable posts about mental health. Austin wasn't just a climber, he was a free soloist who thrived on the thrill of deliberately scaling dangerous localities with no safety net. And the guy was dedicated, to the point that he even devoted his entire life to it, despite racking up some of the nastiest injuries imaginable. First was a bad misstep at his university's indoor rock wall, where he fell down and fractured his skull horribly, in addition to fracturing 3 vertebrae and multiple bones. The other time was a fall on El Capitan's nose in 2015. This left him with another highly traumatic brain injury in addition to a broken wrist and 5 vertebrae in his neck. Yet every time it happened, he recovered and climbed again despite his parents' apprehension. He even had a motto that he immortalized on his Instagram page: "The best climber in this world is the one having the most fun." And for years, he did just that, until one tragic climb in North Carolina. On June 30th, 2019, Austin set out for Short Off Mountain in Linville Gorge. It was already known for its challenging rock faces and was a hotspot amongst climbers. He was accompanied by a photographer who had been taking his pictures all day, but after a while the photographer left and Austin decided to go at it one more time. What happened next is unclear, but around 11:30 a.m., nearby climbers heard a scream. "No!" And then, haunting silence. Austin had fallen roughly 8 to his death. The climbers who witnessed the incident reported that it wasn't Austin's fault. He definitely had a hold break on him. They also recall the tragic silence after the no, as if he'd accepted the grim reality of him not making it out of this one alive. His last picture shows Austin brightly smiling at the camera, dangling on the same mountain he fell from moments later. Level 2. Pulitzer Prize-winning photo. John L. Gaunt was a photographer for the Los Angeles Times who took one of the most haunting photographs ever and ended up winning a Pulitzer Prize for it. The picture captured a couple by the name of John and Lillian McDonald standing at the edge of Hermosa Beach, California. They were locked in an embrace that initially gave off a very cinematic vibe, but later turned out to be horrifying. The two were embracing not out of love, but out of pure, soul-crushing grief and concern. Turns out, just moments earlier, their 19-month-old son had vanished into the ocean. This wasn't supposed to happen. Michael, their son, had just been playing in the yard, but had managed to sneak out of the house in a matter of seconds, completely unnoticed. By the time his parents had realized he was gone, it was too late. He had made his way to the shore where the tide swept him away. A desperately frantic search by the local authorities followed. A local woman even reported seeing a baby floating in the seaweed, but despite all efforts, the ocean gave nothing back. Michael's tiny body appeared near Manhattan Beach, miles from where he disappeared a few days later. Gaunt was completely unaware of everything and just happened to live nearby. He took out his camera and took a single shot of the grieving parents. He didn't need words. The image alone said everything. The photo ran on the front page the next day and hit like a gut punch. It captured something so raw, so human, that it earned Gaunt the 1955 Pulitzer Prize for photography. But for Michael's parents, the nightmare wasn't over. Perhaps it never would be. The photograph that came out of the tragedy now remains as one of the most haunting images in history. Duck crossing. There are certain people out there whose kindness knows no bounds, to the point that they even lose their lives for it. The duck crossing incident occurred on May 22nd, 2023 in California, where a man, Casey Rivera, was picking up his kids from swim practice.
Have you ever wondered how the world's currencies are traded? The foreign exchange market, also known as the Forex market, is the largest and most liquid financial market in the world. It's a market
practice when the three saw a mother duck struggling to cross the heavy traffic street with her ducklings. Casey instantly got to help the mother ducklings cross. They were at an intersection of Park Drive and Stanford Ranch Boulevard on a brightly faded day, and simply wanted to do something nice in front of it. Naturally, his children were also very proud of him and were recording his very unique and adorable interaction with the animals. Unfortunately, what they didn't realize was that this was their father's last moment. Rivera managed to get the duck and her ducklings to cross safely. He was being applauded by the onlookers and was simply going back to his car to his kids. That's when tragedy struck. Another car driving eastbound struck Casey as he was walking back to him, witnessed by children, but also by everyone. A moment of joy for everyone area instantly became a disaster. Casey was unfortunately declared dead on the spot. He is survived by his 2 children and wife, who understandably cannot get over the loss. Brian Pata. Brian Pata was a star football player for the team Miami Hurricanes who was brutally shot after a normal day at practice. On November 7th, 2006, Pata had just wrapped up for the day and was headed home. For him, it was just another regular day that would end with him parking his car and heading home. Unfortunately, it wasn't anywhere near normal. Moments after he parked his car outside his apartment complex, he was shot and killed. At the time of the shooting, there were absolutely witnesses, suspects. The entire incident was just a 22-year-old down out of nowhere. The lack of almost any concrete evidence made this case a very hard one. It remained a cold case for 15 years until 2021 when everything changed. Police arrested Pata's own teammate, Rashawn Jones. The worst part is that Jones was seen not only on the on-field memorial held for Pata back in 2006, but was also photographed kneeling and crying over it. Police finally managed to gather enough evidence, including a hands-on witness, to arrest Jones and charge him of murder. According to sources, Jones and Pata had clashed numerous times, expected some sort of life-threatening animosity from him. He even reportedly told his brother about it, but did not say anything to his team or coach. Apparently, Jones was not only holding a grudge over football-related tension, but also personally frustrated with the late footballer. He was even suspended from the team at one point, but sadly, no one thought their beef would go this far. When the news broke, it was a gut punch to everyone who had waited for answers. Justice may have finally caught up, but the image of Jones on the memorial can only be described as downright sinister. Granite Mountain Hotshots. Granite Mountain Hotshots were a team of elite wildland firefighters known as the Granite Mountain Hotshots, who lost their lives in the devastating Yarnell Hill fire. These guys had faced the worst of battling devastating wildfires, but couldn't survive the one on June 30th, 2013. The entire group was out in Arizona fighting the devastating Yarnell Hill fire that morning of the dreadful day. Unfortunately, like most of these incidents, these guys were completely unaware that this would be their final mission. During that moment in their firefighting mission, the fire was dangerous but manageable, which gave them no reason to believe it would turn deadly. But wildfires are unpredictable. At some point in the afternoon, winds began to shift, and so did the direction of the fire. The fire suddenly cut off the group's only escape route and trapped them in a box canyon. They had nowhere to go, and their only option was to deploy their emergency fire shelters. It's a thin aluminum cover designed to deflect heat in life or death situations. Unfortunately, it's only used as a last resort and doesn't really do much against prolonged exposure to very hot environments. Similarly, in this case, the fire was burning at over 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit and simply wasn't enough to save the hotshots' lives. 19 of the 20 hotshots lost their lives that day. The only survivor was stationed away from the group as a lookout. There's a picture of the group standing in front of a tree, posing gleefully after the 2013 Joche fire. Oma bombing. Fernando Baselga and his daughter were just 2 people enjoying their day in Oma, North Ireland. North Ireland. In it, the father-daughter duo was seen standing and smiling near a red Vauxhall Cavalier parked on the street. They were posing like any other family, taking a casual photo, and were completely unaware of what was about to happen. The very car they stood next to was actually a bomb that was about to take 29 lives and injure over 2,000 people. It was August 15th, 1998, a busy Saturday afternoon in Omagh, North Ireland, when this devastating incident occurred. It was like any other day in the area. The streets were packed with people going about their day when a warning call came in about a potential bomb. The call, unfortunately, was very vague and misleading, and even ended up causing more harm than good. Police weren't sure where the actual bomb was located, so they unknowingly began directing people toward the very spot of it. While authorities scrambled around to clear the area as much as they could, by the time anyone realized the true location of the bomb, it was too late. The real Irish Republican Army was the one responsible for the horrific act. They were a splinter group of the IRA and had problems with the ceasefire that was signed. As a result, they planted a car bomb loaded with 500 pounds of explosives right in the heart of the town. The bomb went off at around 3 p.m., instantly killing more than a dozen people and leaving a scene of absolute devastation. The force of the bomb was catastrophic, especially considering how it was in the middle of a busy shopping street. It not only took the lives of people standing near it, it caused a lot of infrastructure damage in the area as well. As for the people in the picture, they both thankfully survived. But no one can deny that the once ordinary, harmless family photo became much darker and is now forever tied to one of the deadliest terrorist attacks in Northern Ireland's history. Darren Mitchell. Darren Charles Mitchell was a National Guardsman from Navasota, Texas, who found himself stuck on a highway in the Kansan, Texas floods. He was just trying to get home on his truck on May 26, 2016, when the floodwaters rose beyond comprehension and trapped him in his vehicle. He was initially fine with the thing. His sister even told his family he had managed to get out safely. He took a photo of his absurd situation and posted it to Facebook. The image showed his vehicle nearly submerged in murky brown floodwater. He captioned it with a simple, "All I wanted to do was go home." Witnesses later recalled seeing Darren step out of the truck, likely trying to assess the situation. Eventually got back inside, and that was when the flood took him. The current flipped his truck and swept it away. Search teams found his body downstream days later. His truck was already completely upside down and totaled. Level 3. Ayano Tokumaso. The most unsettling pictures are those that look relatively unassuming but hold a dark history behind them. This can be attributed to a picture taken at Niagara Falls by a couple, Andrea Smith and Jason Watson. The picture portrays nothing unusual, just the two standing in front of the site with their arms around each other and a bunch of other people surrounding them. What they do not realize, though, is the fact that one person in the background would fall to her inevitable death just moments later. Ayano Tokumaso was a 20-year-old English exchange student at Toronto's Hansa Language Center, originally hailing from Japan. She was visiting the Niagara Falls with a boyfriend for a sightseeing trip. Like most people who see the gigantic wonder for the first time, she was excited beyond belief and wanted to immortalize her experience through a picture. That's when she decided to go beyond the safety railings to take as good of a photo as she could. However, because of how high the waterfalls are and how fast the flowing water is, the minute she did that, her body couldn't sustain it. She lost her footing and fell down backward. Naturally, because of how rapid the flowing water is, she was simply swept away. Authorities were instantly on the case and were doing everything they could to find her, hopefully alive. But tragically, her body was reported to be floating in the lower part of the Niagara River a few days after her fall. The picture of the couple that made internet rounds after Ayano's death show her in the background. She's standing on the edge of the railing, just like witnesses claim, completely unaware that she's almost about to lose her life.
Hey, business owner, tired of wasting hours on scheduling, attendance, and payroll? Connecting's here to simplify all of that for you. With
the little boy in the Spider-Man costume. William Tyrell was just a 3-year-old kid running around in a little Spider-Man suit when he disappeared without a trace. What the world didn't know was how his disappearance would turn into one of the longest, most frustrating cold cases ever. It was September 12th, 2014, and William was at his foster grandmother's house in Kendal, New South Wales, pretending to be a superhero. As mentioned before, he was dressed in his Spider-Man suit and was in his front yard playing with his sister. His foster mom had just concluded taking pictures of him and had gone inside to make tea. In the last known photo of William taken that morning, he's crouched down like a lion, mid-roar, and has a bright grin on his face. It's a kind of picture that turns into a sweet memory years later. But sadly, this time around, it became a haunting reminder of the last time he was ever seen. His foster mother and grandmother were inside when everything went quiet. When they went out to see what was wrong, there was nothing. William had disappeared into thin air. A frantic search for the boy started immediately, with everyone taking part, but to no avail. The following investigation into William's disappearance has been filled with more questions than answers. There is barely any evidence to suggest literally anything. Some people believe he was abducted. Others suspect something more tragic happened closer to home. His foster mother has been under observation for some time now. Certain reports suggest that William might have died accidentally in her care, and she could have disposed of his body in an attempt to cover it up. But there's no proof, and it's all basically just speculation by now. Even after all these years, the case still remains as one of Australia's most baffling mysteries. Jane Doe, Amber Ray Johnston. When two seemingly unrelated incidents occur within a short time span, there's always a chance they're not as unrelated as they seem. The case of Anston County's Jane Doe is a strange one. It's an unsolved mystery that, like most Jane Doe cases, is built entirely on speculation. In August 2021, a woman was caught on a trail camera deep woods of Wadesboro, North Carolina. She was completely unidentified, between 30 and 40 years old. She was half naked and was wandering the dense forest in the middle of the night. Later footage showed her again, this time holding a large stick, seemingly in distress. She passed the camera several times before vanishing. No one ever saw her again. Months later, in February 2022, a group of rabbit hunters stumbled upon a backpack in the same area. They ransacked it, but ultimately left it behind. For a while, nothing came of it, until a few months later when a woman's skeletal remains were found in the same woods. The police quickly connected the dots. They speculated that the woman in the footage and the remains belonged to the same person. But when they attempted to identify her, the investigation led nowhere. Several missing persons were considered, including a woman named April Reed, who had disappeared around the same time the footage was captured, but dental records ruled her out, as well as every other possible match. With no DNA leads, no belongings except for the backpack, and no other clues beyond the grainy trail cam footage, the woman remains unidentified to this day. Her case is still open, and her identity is still unknown. Flame of red hair. When it comes to the wilderness, something as simple as just a hike can turn deadly experience. Brendan and Sailor were simply two friends who set out for what should have been a day out in nature. When it decides to be unforgiving, things never go as planned. Sailor Gilliams and Brendan Vega were two friends who went hiking on the trail to Barra in March of 2014. Since it was ultimately just a little hike in the afternoon, they didn't think much of it. They unfortunately hadn't exactly prepared for how tricky the terrain would get once the sun started going down. As darkness set in, the rough terrain became an absolute menace for them and ended up in a horrible tragedy. Since they couldn't see where they were going in the darkness, both of them slipped and injured themselves brutally. His arm badly, while Sailor suffered 2 broken ankles and a fractured wrist. He tried to carry her a bit, but injured himself further. So he leaves Sailor at the trail to look for help.
Some people say that playing game is wasting time and money. That means they haven't played this game. This is the game that will blow your mind forever. A game where you can turn your efforts into real world earning. Enjoy basic adventure powered with Web3 and blockchain technology. Invest your time and start to grind for real money.
Help. That decision, while technically the right one, ended in tragedy. Brendan was trying to go back to his car, but the darkness became his biggest enemy. He ended up falling to his death from a ledge. The next morning, another group of hikers came across Sailor, still alive but severely injured, unable to move. She was airlifted to the hospital and treated for her injuries. What basically saved her life was her bright red hair that she dyed only some time ago. In the pictures the second hiking group had taken, there's a small dot of her hair in the background. Newlyweds. Eric Hutchinson and Samantha Miller had spent their entire special day celebrating. They were a couple who had just tied the knot 5 hours ago in a gorgeous wedding in Foley Beach, South Carolina. For them, their ceremony and reception were perfect. They were enjoying themselves, taking pictures, and just being happy in each other's company like any other newly married couple. Disturbingly, as they left their reception in a golf cart decorated with a "Just Married" sign, they had no idea it would be their last ride together. Their golf cart was crashed into by a car going at a scary 65 miles per hour in a 25-mile-per-hour zone. The driver of the car, Jamie Lee Komorski, was drunk out of her mind and slammed her car into them from the back. Samantha, the bride, was still in her wedding dress and was tragically killed instantly. Eric survived but was left with a brain injury and multiple broken bones. But the worst of it was the unimaginable grief of losing his wife just hours after saying, "I do." 2 of their family members riding with them were also seriously injured. According to Eric, during Komorski's trial, Samantha's last words to him that night were that she didn't want it to end. Komorski later pleaded guilty to felony DUI and reckless homicide, receiving a 25-year prison sentence. Eric and Samantha's family were awarded a $1.3 million settlement. Unfortunately, no amount of money could make up for the beautiful life lost that day in an accident that could have been easily avoided. One of the last photos of the couple was taken at their reception, the 2 smiling brightly, completely unaware that their perfect day would end in tragedy. Danwon students' ferry incident. One of South Korea's deadliest ferry disasters was the sinking of MV Sewol. The vessel was on its way from Incheon to Jeju Island with 476 passengers when it capsized off the southwestern coast. Out of everyone on board, 304 lost their lives, most of which were high school students on their way to a casually fun trip before the responsibility of senior year set in. The ferry trip was supposed to be a relaxing getaway for these students so they could wind down. Like any group of teenagers on a trip, they took pictures, laughed, joked around, and just enjoyed themselves. Even when things started going wrong, they weren't panicking because they believed rescue would come soon, which, in hindsight, was an absolutely terrible call that cost hundreds of lives. It becomes even crazier when you realize that as the ship was actively sinking, most of the crew, including the captain, ditched the passengers and got themselves to safety. The people who managed to survive only did so because they refused to listen to the unhinged orders passed by the captain. Instead of staying inside the ship, they jumped out and were eventually rescued by fishing boats and commercial vessels nearby. For those who trusted the orders given to them, most of them being the students, the outcome
My fault. The beats is blasting. The beats is beating. We got some shit to unbox because you know we have new decks on the way. New waves for the play bay. Tell them to go play with their mother. Coño, pero yo. My fault. The beats is blasting. The beats is beating. We got some shit to unbox
about you, and it's no one else like you is what they're getting. Positive vibes only. Shout out to King Saul's boss in the build about you, and it's no one else like you is what they're getting. Positive vibes only. Shout out to King Saul's boss in the build about you, and it's no one else like you is what they're getting. Positive vibes only. Shout out to King Saul's boss in the build about you, and it's no one else like you is what they're getting. Positive vibes only. Shout out to King Saul's boss in the build about you, and it's no one else like you is what.
My fault. The beats is blasting. The beats is beating. We got some shit to unbox because you know we have new decks on the way. Wait, new waves for the play bay. Tell them to go play with their mother. Coño, pero yo.